Hello, today I am going to record my testimony on how I came to the Lord, or actually how the Lord came to me, because I didn't ask for Him. I was more just in a place of depression, anxiety, and also PTSD, but I'll get into that in a second here. But yes, bear with me because you have to know some background, and then you also need to kind of catch up with the plot twist of how my testimony ties in together, because there was a moment where the Lord encountered me and then I denied it a few weeks later, and then I got into some other stuff and then He took me out of that. So it was just like this war back and forth within like a year or two of my life. So I got saved in, oh gosh, sometime in 2017 towards the end. I don't remember if it was October or if it was December, somewhere in between that time. But first, starting off with my background, I grew up in a Christian family. I don't want to offend my family, but I didn't see much fruit from being a Christian in my family, so I didn't understand why it was good to follow Jesus, because, my family still lived in a lot of sin, and it just didn't make sense to me, why Jesus was so great. And I think that's why it's so important for us to follow Jesus in the 10 Commandments and not just say that we love Him. So I grew up in that. My great-grandparents were pastors. A lot of my great-great-grandmothers were very strong women of God. And fast forward, when I was in fourth grade, I moved with my dad in Orange County. I was always back and forth, different schools from Hesperia to Orange County. And then, when I hit fourth grade, I finally stayed here. And my dad's side of the family never talks about Jesus, didn't really have a spiritual foundation. So I just kind of really never went back to church after that, because my mom's side was the side that always went to church. So, I just grew up doing my own thing and whatnot. I lived with my dad all my life, basically, and I did not like being home. There was a lot going on with certain people who had moved into my home, who kind of just created a lot of havoc, and I just hated my house. So I told myself, when I turn 18, I'm moving out. When I graduate, when I turn 18, I'm going to move out. I had no idea where I was going to go, no clue who I was going to move in with. I just made the decision in my mind and in my heart that I'm leaving. So I turned 18, I graduated, I partied a lot. I started drinking when I was about, I want to say 12 or 14 years old. I partied every single weekend from junior high to the last day of high school. And that's pretty much, sadly, what I was good at. I was a really good partier. I loved going to parties. That's just what I did to fill voids of heartbreak and, just boys always cheating on me and crazy stuff. So that was what I did. I hopped from boyfriend to boyfriend because I was trying to get rid of the heartbreak that I had when I was 14 years old. And which is so crazy how that can last if you don't confront it. I'm gonna be 22 in a few days, but I didn't get over that first heartbreak until I was about 19, 20 years old. But anyways, so partying, drinking, and then 18 years old came. So of course I went to a party that night, one of the nights during summer. And I was at this party and I'm in the backyard with my friend, and I saw this guy inside, because I was outside, he was inside. So I saw him through the window, the house window, and I kind of asked her like, oh, who is that? And she's like, oh, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's kind of cute. And she's like, yeah, we're at his house, right? And this light bulb went off in my mind, because I knew that I can get with this dude. And it sounds bad, so if you're watching this video, you know who you are. I love you, and I respect you, and I know we've both moved on, but I need to tell this testimony for the glory of God. So just understand that I'm not this person anymore. So in my mind at that time, I was like, here's a dude that I know that I can latch onto, and this is his house. So obviously I'm thinking I'm going to get with this guy and I'm just going to move in. And that's what I did. So I stayed there, I believe, that night. He never told me to leave. We didn't do anything inappropriate at all. He just let me stay the night. So I did, and then the next day came around. Don't really remember the next day, but I basically just stayed forever. It ended up lasting about 2 years. I would go home to go get clothes and come back, go get clothes and come back. And then that's kind of just how a relationship started with this guy. And it was hard because, I thought I was running away from my life. I thought that my life was bad and I just want to get away from the people that I live with. And then I come into this home where there's 10 times the havoc, and this guy's mom was really addicted to drugs and alcohol, and it was very, very noticeable. They were going through a divorce, they were going through moving, and that's when I came in, and I basically became this person for this guy to latch onto. And he became my boyfriend, but it was very, very toxic because he was losing his mom, he was losing the house, he was losing his family, just everything. And they had no spiritual foundation. They were very more like hippies, and I don't believe they have a spiritual foundation till this day. I pray for him every day, though. He's been on my heart a lot. And so hippies, so you could just do whatever you want, there's no sin in the world, and you can do drugs and nothing will happen to you, and just nothing, just no boundaries in their life, and just nothing at all. So I lived there with them for 2 years. We were in one house. I moved in with them to another house in Seal Beach, California, and it was a really nice big house. I was the only girl. It was 2 brothers and the dad. The mom had moved in to another place because she was on drugs and stuff like that, and the divorce and everything. Fast forward a little bit, still partying. I've never done drugs in my entire life, but my boyfriend at the time, he wasn't a drug addict, but he was introduced to drugs and he's done them before, and he would do them for fun here and there. And he never pressured me into doing drugs, but because him and his friends always talked about it, I got very, very curious because I never heard of any negative stories from them. They all sounded like really cool and whatever, So one day, I did ecstasy, and I did it a few times, and this is still in the beginning of our relationship, I believe. And from that, I developed severe, severe, severe anxiety. Like, I know a lot of people suffer from anxiety, but I know that it feels different for everyone. And for me, it just felt like I was dying. And I know some people are like, well, what do you mean by that? And that's just the only way I can explain it to you. That was the feeling. That was the only way I can comprehend what I was feeling. It was death. Like, I just felt like I was dying. So it would be, for example, in the middle of the night, I'd be sleeping with my boyfriend, and all of a sudden, it's like the movies where you're laying there and all of a sudden you're like come up super, super fast and your eyes just wide open, and my heart would be pounding like, I don't know, a bajillion miles per hour. I could hear it, I could feel it, and my breath couldn't keep up with it. And then there was white noise, so I couldn't hear anything, and it was just dark. I was super, super depressed. And I would wake up like that constantly throughout the night. And I know that my ex can attest to this because he saw me struggle through that. He didn't understand, though, so he couldn't help me at all. He was there, his presence was there. But that's also kind of hard. When I look back, it's like, it's not that he was a part of the issue, but everything is spiritual. So I don't know, just the spirits weren't clashing correctly. Everything was toxic, and I was just in turmoil. I was in a lot of turmoil. So he couldn't really help me at all. I didn't tell my family that I did drugs. I never told them I did drugs till after I got saved, because I don't come from that. So that I was scared to tell them. So eventually they knew I had anxiety because I couldn't hide it. At one point I got too scared. I didn't know what to do. I had my dad take me to emergency rooms because I couldn't do anything. I would be in my bed, just laying there. And then I would take a bunch of these like antibiotics, and that didn't help. And I hate any kind of medicines, and it freaked me out because every time I saw the antibiotic, I would think about ecstasy. Anything that looked like a pill, I would think about it. So I couldn't take anything. So when I saw it, my anxiety would just go out the roof, and I just felt like everything was just a big snowball effect. Nothing was helping me. So everyone saw me like this, and they didn't know what to do. I couldn't eat for days and days because my appetite was gone from ecstasy. I wanted to fight my best friend because of ecstasy, because if you don't know what ecstasy is, it brings out all your serotonin, I believe that's what it is, your happy cells. So the next day when you're coming down, you don't have any more happiness in you. It's just, you're just dull. You have no joy in your body anymore. So I don't know if I explained that correctly, but you know what I mean. And it was really hard because I've never gotten in a fight in my entire life, but I wanted to fight her. Like anything she said, she bugged me and for no apparent reason either. And this is why drugs are so terrible, because they feel good for the moment, but they will ultimately win if you don't have Jesus in your life and you have that addiction, because then you want to feel that happiness again. But when you do that drug again, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same, because you're expecting it to be like the first high again, and that's just not how it works. So that's why, you know, people do more and more and more, and then they go down this hill, because then they try to get off, and then they're angry, and they're angry, and then it ruins families, it ruins relationships, and you don't understand anything, and you feel like crap, and it's just terrible. So another time, this is kind of where the testimony starts. I know it's going to take a while, so forgive me, but it's kind of hard looking back at all of this because, you know, in depth, I'm trying to really tell you guys the story, but looking back a few years is just crazy, and I'm trying to stay calm. I'm like fidgeting and stuff. So, and I'm not editing this video, so this is just raw. So one day we were out eating with some friends, and they were all talking about acid. So I'm like, that sounds cool. I want to try acid, you know. I don't know what drugs are, so I thought that it was just going to be like another form of ecstasy. It's going to make me feel some type of way. And yeah, I didn't know anything. I was so naive. My boyfriend didn't do the greatest job at explaining to me, you know, the preparation process of having to take drugs, or, you know, what you should and shouldn't do when you're on a drug. He just was like, yeah, let's do it. So the next day, we literally planned it for the next day. It was a bunch of us. Again, I was the only girl who was on the drug, but my best friend at the time, her name was Yasmin, and another friend of mine, Haley, were there when I took this drug, but they were both sober. I wanted someone to be sober, and so they were. So we go to Huntington Beach. Actually, there was another girl that was on acid with me, so just to clarify. We went to Huntington Beach in California the next day around 5 o'clock. We took the acid at around 4 or 5, and I didn't know what it was supposed to do, and I wanted like the full effects of it again, because I thought it was going to be a feeling. So I put the tab on my tongue, and I was like sucking the crap out of it. Like I wanted all the juice out of it, because I just wanted whatever feeling I thought it was going to give me. So they were like, oh no, you only have to keep it in your mouth for this amount of time. So I was like, okay, then I'm going to keep it in longer, because whatever, right? So I think I kept it in my mouth for like the whole time the whole time we were driving there. And then I took it out, and I'm like waiting, and I'm asking my boyfriend like, oh, when is it gonna hit me? Like, I don't feel anything. And he's like, oh, you'll know, you'll know. And I'm like, okay. So we're walking to Huntington Beach, and we go onto the sand. And I'm just like irritated at this point because I'm like, this is dumb. Nothing's happening. It's already like 6 o'clock. And then we lay down on the sand, and my sober friend is there as well, but my boyfriend and I lay down on the sand, and we're sharing earphones, and he's playing some kind of music, and it was cool. And then I looked up at the clouds, and I knew it was hitting me because the clouds were just all these different kinds of geometric shapes, and I was, at this point, like, I was tripping, because that is obviously not gonna happen in your natural state of mind. So they were all these kind of, like, kind of like mandala flowers, if that's what you call them. They were just going like in and out of each other. Like, all the clouds were crazy. It was freaking me out, but in a good way. I was fine. I was laying there, had no words for it. And then my boyfriend changed the song to I think it was Suicide Boys, and I hated that music. I hated it with all my heart because, again, I come from a Christian background, so I knew that that stuff was actually really demonic, but he didn't understand that. So so once he changed the song, the clouds were not like these pretty shapes anymore. They were, one of them, they just all morphed together, and they turned into like, these Chinese dragons. Like, I don't know. It was awkward, but it was one of those dragons, and it was so scary to me. And then I don't know if you guys have ever seen that picture where it's a really pretty girl one way, but then you flip it over and it's like an old lady. And I visibly saw that in the clouds. So, I was kind of seeing like the bad in everything, and it immediately freaked me out. I jumped up from the sand like super fast, and I threw out the earphone, and it freaked my boyfriend out. He was like, what the heck? Like, what happened? I said, I don't like that song. I don't like it. Yeah, I don't like it. And at this point, from that point on, I was done. I was completely done. I was like, I'm gonna go walk over to my friend Melissa. She was having a great time. She was cracking up by the ocean, and I'm like, how? So I was like, maybe I can feed off of her, I don't know, her vibe or whatever. So I walk next to her, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, no, nothing's happening. I'm not feeling what she's feeling. I don't know what she's laughing about, because this is not fun. So I look out at the ocean, and it just turns, I don't know how to explain it. It just looked very scary to me because it was so alive. And if you're trying to understand the point of this trip, I just want to let you know that I went to hell for 12 hours. Like, literally, hell on earth. And there are some people who might watch this video who I've never really told them the in-depth story, like the people who were there when I did the drug. And, after, they kind of thought I was just like, oh, she's a lightweight and this and that and the other. She can't handle her drugs, because people are like that nowadays. And what they really don't know is that I was in hell, and I saw demons, and I could hear the whispers, and I saw destruction and deterioration of the world. So that was what my trip was. So I looked at the ocean again. It was just very dark. I was terrified of it because it was huge, and it was just black. It just looked black and loud and super scary. And then I would kind of look at the sky, and mind you, it's still around 6 o'clock, so it's kind of getting dark. And by the way, I guess you're not supposed to do acid in the dark, and you're not supposed to do it around a bunch of people. You're supposed to do it in a place where you're very well, where like a place that and around people that you trust. And I didn't 100% fully trust the people I was with. And plus, it was dark. So it's kind of getting dark, but I can't tell what's real or fake anymore. So I'm just looking out at the sky, and it's a little blue. But as my vision was kind of following, I was kind of looking at everything I looked at just died. So the sky turned like a dark green, like a forest, ugly, scary green. And then all of a sudden, my whole world was just black. It was like a movie. I felt like I was this, I don't know, like I thought I was the one doing all of this because everything I looked at just was destroyed. So then I turned around. No, not yet. I didn't turn around yet. I looked at the sand because at this point I'm just gone. I'm trying to figure out and process what the heck is happening or what I'm seeing. Where am I? And I look at the sand and I just see faces in the ground, like kind of like quicksand. Like it was just the holes of faces though. So it was just like the holes of the eyes and the mouth, and I think like the nose too. But they were just, they were falling. Like it was like quicksand. Like I could see them going down into the earth. Like these faces, like they're crying out for help, just like scary and really ugly. And it freaked me out because I just couldn't believe it. So I had no words again for it. So I turned around, I grabbed my boyfriend, I said, we need to walk. Like, we need to walk. And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, we just need to walk. So I'm walking, and I'm facing towards, not the ocean, but, towards the world, the main street and, the pier. I'm facing all of that now, the shops and the street. And there's a lot going on. There's too much going on. So I hold his hand, and I don't care what I sound like. I don't care what I look like. At this point, I'm just trying to come back to reality, and I'm trying to keep calm as much as possible. I didn't tell anyone what I was seeing because I didn't want to believe it. I think I was in denial of what I was seeing. So I took his hand. I'm walking, but I'm still like low-key looking at everything, I'm like looking at this tree over here, and I'm looking at this bush over here. I'm looking at the most simplest things I can because I'm still kind of there. I'm like, I know that is a flower, like simple things like that. So we would be walking, and everything I passed by died. So if I passed by a flower, it would just die. Like it would be pink, and then I'd look at it and it would fall to the ground and just completely like rot, basically. And we went to go sit on a table. I believe it was a table. And I feel like this video is so terrible, but I'm sorry because I'm really trying to remember everything. And it's hard because I don't want to remember that time. But God is good, so we'll get there. We sit at this table, and my boyfriend's still playing some music, and I was trying to think of music that I liked, that I used to listen to. So I told him, put on like some Adele or something. He's like looking at me like, oh my gosh, okay. So he plays that. But when you're on acid, everything is so enhanced. You can literally feel and understand the music and the emotions of the person who wrote those songs. So I liked Adele's music, but when it was playing while I was on acid, it broke me, because her music is so sad, but I felt it in a way that I've never felt it before. And so I told him to change that, and nothing worked. Nothing worked at all. And then I look down. I kind of look down from where we're standing, and there's these people, probably the people that work on the beach. They have the truck, and they put the trash bags in the trunk. Well, I know that this probably wasn't real, but this is what it looked like to me. These men were putting, like, it looked like dead bodies in the trash bags, and it looked like they were throwing them into the trunk. And they knew that I was looking at them, and I felt like they were laughing at me, and it was just super demonic. And they were pointing at me, and they were just laughing at me, like laughing at the fact that they knew that I was in hell, that I was tripping. And it was just really terrible. And I was kind of like I was really trying to figure out if that's what was happening because it was so real to me. But guys, drugs are so crazy. They're so crazy, and they're not from the Lord. They're not from the Lord at all. You know, because I know some people, they'll probably be like, well, duh, you're just tripping. You didn't actually go to hell. You're just on drugs. First of all, drugs are not from the Lord. So even though you might be having a good trip, that's the deception, because you're going to fall into an addiction. And the people that don't, I mean, God bless you. Like, Lord is having so much mercy on you, because the deception is to make you feel like it's such a good thing and have you in that trap. So anyways, when I was in hell, I couldn't fathom or understand what I was seeing. So we got up from there. I grabbed my boyfriend again because I'm like, these people are laughing at me. They're pointing at me. I can like physically hear them laughing, see them pointing at me, like cracking up, like, you know, like kneeling and just crazy stuff. And I'm like, what the heck? And then the dead bodies in the trash can. Again, I'm not saying anything yet though. So I grabbed my boyfriend, we're walking, and I'm trying to come back to normal. So I probably sounded so stupid, but I was trying to just focus on colors, you know. I was trying to focus on reality, anything that was really there that I knew was real. So I would be like, oh, like this color, this is green, you know. That's all I remember saying, because I was looking at like the bushes and the palm trees. Green. And my boyfriend's like going along with me. He's like, yeah, you know, green. Like, probably thought I was such a weirdo. And then I look up, and this building that was in front of me was just in flames. Like, it was completely a whole building in flames. Can you imagine? You know, it's like stuff you see in the movies. But I'm just staring at it, and I'm holding his hand, and I'm just like, what the heck, you know, like still not saying anything. Again, you're not supposed to be around a lot of people for your first time doing acid. And we were on Huntington Beach Main Street on a Tuesday, and that is when they shut down the whole main street, and they have like a huge farmers market. Okay, so there's a lot going on. There's like hundreds of people. There's all these tents, all these lights, and just craziness going on. So I'm walking down that main street, and it took me a very long time because I was completely gone at that point. I didn't know who was real and who was fake. I would look at my boyfriend, and he would morph into a demon right in front of my eyes, and it was super real. He would turn like this dark, deep brick red, and he would shorten, and then he would elongate like forward. And, you know, if his hands were out here, then they would elongate this way. And if he was laughing, it would just look really, really evil. And he had like little white horns and everything. They kind of look like chalk. I don't know how to explain it. And everything on his face became just extremely enhanced, and he was just a straight up demon. And at that moment, it scared me, because I'm like, why is my own boyfriend turning into a demon? So this was all happening at once, and then I'm looking around at everyone, and I just stopped. I couldn't walk anymore. I couldn't do anything, but I literally was tripping, because I would look at people walking, my mouth, you know, probably like wide open, my eyes. I'm in terror. There's a difference between horror and terror. Horror is when like you don't really know what's gonna happen or what you're gonna see next. You're just like frightened to see the next thing. But me, I was terrified. I was in terror because it was right in front of my face, and I didn't know what to do about it anymore. And I didn't know what was gonna happen to me. I didn't know I didn't know if I was even at the beach anymore, because I realized that I was so gone that how can I tell if I'm not in the middle of the street and there's a car about to run me over? How can I tell if I'm not like at a gas station? Or what if I'm just like in my room and I'm just completely tripping now? Like, I just had no idea where I was at. And everyone that I saw on that street was The Walking Dead. They were like zombies. They were, I saw no flesh, like actual flesh, skin. All I saw was the skeleton, and they had rags, and they were all ripped, and everyone was like dragging themselves, and their hair was raggedy and just really, really nasty. But they were all looking at me, just me. They were all looking at me, all these people. And I would look them like right in the eyes, right in the face. And it's because they probably really were looking at me, because I probably looked like I was on drugs. I probably looked like I was scared, and they're probably looking at me like, oh my God, is this girl okay? You know, in the real world. But what I was seeing was the spiritual world, because that world is a lot more real than a lot of you might know or think. So that is a world I was seeing into. And so, you know, hundreds of people, just hundreds of skeletons and these demonic figures everywhere. Some people looked like Dia de los Muertos, you know, the Day of the Dead. You know how they have like those kind of paintings on their faces. So some looked like actually happy. Like some were couples and they're like holding each other, and they actually looked like really pretty girls, but it still tripped me out because they were still skeletons and they had all that on their face. And it was like a movie. I literally felt like I was in a movie, because people would be passing me and I would just be like staring at them, you know, like so they're probably looking at me like, you know, and I would just pass by them and like, oh my gosh, because I was just tripping on everything. So my boyfriend would be like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, okay. You know, I don't think I was talking. I don't think they heard me speak for 12 hours straight. I don't think I could talk. That's how long I was in hell, by the way, 12 hours. And so he's walking me down Main Street, and we stop in front of this store. I know what the store is because I've been to Huntington so many times. I know what the store is, but it's not that store anymore. I'm looking at it and I am just like, you know, really trying to focus and grasp what I'm seeing. So it was a bathing suit store, and you know, they have like, you know, really pretty things hanging from the top. There's like nets and all these things, but for what it looked like for me, it was just a bunch of, again, dirty rags. I could physically hear things swinging in the store. There was like hooks, dead fish, just, it looked like a horror movie. Like, it was crazy. And so I'm staring at that and I'm like, what the heck? I know that that's a bathing suit store, but it's not a bathing suit store, you know? So I stood there for a long time too, because at this point I'm like shaking, like literally my whole body's trembling because I'm terrified. So I'm like this, my eyes are like, when you're on drugs, you're not really present, you know? So my eyes were just huge, and I couldn't speak. My boyfriend kept asking me what I could see. I can hear everyone having conversation around me. I can hear what they're saying. I'm conscious in that way. I can hear them talking to me. If they would talk to me, I can respond like this and like this. But I couldn't speak because I was traumatized. And you know, I'd be looking around at all the lights, and when you're on acid, it's very, very hard to comprehend everything, again, because everything is enhanced and your brain cannot focus on that many things at one time, but everything comes out at you at one time. And not only that, but I'm in hell, so it's just like 100 times worse. So